So subsidies, how do they work? Well, we can take an example here that maybe you know something about. Maybe we look at higher education, the market for higher education. There are significant subsidies, right? The tuition at MSUB is right, quoted at maybe around $6,000 a year. Compared to Rocky or somewhere else, that's not very high. Of course, if you look it up, it turns out that the amount of money transferred to the university from taxpayer funds, both federal and state, ends up being around $19,000. So at least rough estimates, there's probably some other hidden subsidies through student loans and other things. In other words, you're not paying the entire price of college. Okay, so that's a policy. That's a policy here. And in that situation, as ever, in order to figure out the impact of the policy, we're going to have to find somewhere where this is true. Quantity supplied has to equal quantity demanded. What's the case? Well, the price suppliers receive is equal to the price consumers pay plus the subsidy. This is just the amount transferred from the Treasury. So in other words, we're going to have to raise those funds somewhere, probably through taxes, or maybe through tariffs, or through fees on services, or something like that. And then we're going to take those resources and we're going to help defray the cost of higher education, the cost of tuition. So, in other words, the amount you pay plus the amount that is transferred from federal funds and state funds is going to equal the amount that the suppliers, myself, the university, the administrators, if you look at the budget for the university, is, right, we can basically say we have this upward sloping supply schedule. So what this works out to, the other way to look at this would be the price suppliers receive minus the subsidy is equal to the cost consumers bear. This is the same thing as saying that the price suppliers receive is greater than the amount that consumers give up. All right. So now we have to find somewhere where this is true and this is true. Now we looked at price ceilings and floors. We ended up back here. We've got our market clearing price and quantity. Again, you'll see some people refer to that as the equilibrium price and quantity. I find that that isn't helpful because it turns out there is an infinite number of equilibria. There is only, in other words, places where we're stable. We just looked at a place where we're stable with price ceilings and price floors. We looked, so there's an infinite number of equilibria in here, equilibria quantities. There happens to be only one where there is both an equilibrium quantity and an equilibrium price that is the same for consumers and producers. And so that's one reason I prefer to talk about a price, a market clearing price and a market clearing quantity. In other words, there's exactly the number of goods that are available for sale are what people want to buy. And so we can end up like in the case of a tax, we actually have market clearing prices because there isn't a uniform price. Although at that point, we want to remember that price is a placeholder for the cost to consumers and the benefit to the producers. Now, so we looked at places where we're back here. And in those situations, what was true? The price suppliers received was less than the benefit, the benefit that producers received was less than the cost that consumers incurred. Here we have a situation where the benefit to suppliers is greater than the cost to consumers. And so let's see what happens. We could go through the exact same process and say, hey, if this is this, well, why not? Let's do it. If this is the subsidy, maybe consumers receive the entire subsidy, right? They walk in, hand over. Well, if they receive the entire subsidy, they would hand over this much to the suppliers. They get home, they have a check waiting for them in that amount. And that would cause suppliers to receive that much. So this would be our quantity supplied. And at this cost to consumers, that would be the quantity that they consume. What's true? We have a shortage. We have empty shelves, which will cause the cost to consumers to go up and will cause the benefit to suppliers to go up. On the other hand, we could have a situation where suppliers receive the entire amount of the subsidy. Consumers walk in, students walk onto campus, they hand over this much, and the producers, the professors and the administrators and the bureaucrats receive this much. And in that case, what's true? Well, now this is the quantity demanded. And this would be the quantity supplied. What do we have? We have unsold goods. We have empty seats. And what would happen? We would expect now that the benefit to suppliers would have to fall and the cost to consumers would have to fall. So we now know that the cost to consumers would need to be somewhere in here, cost to consumers, and the benefit to suppliers would need to be somewhere in here. Where would we be stable? Well, it turns out that we're going to be stable when the vertical distance here, the gap between what consumers give up and producers receive, is exactly equal to the subsidy. At that point, consumers are going to consume this quantity here because this is their cost. And producers are going to produce this quantity here because